Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Parintam Vande Guru Param Ishvaro Guratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sachiguru Pranatoshmaham Om Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome, my dear friends, back to Tripura. We have seen last week we did up to verse 71 when Dattatreya tells Parasurama, with the help of pure yoga, observe the creation manifest by one's will, like the hallucinations brought about by a magician, verse 71. And then there is a note there that let me close this one here. What's up? Okay. And then there is a note talking about certain gems and with certain property that we don't know if these things are factual or not, but we know that anything is possible. There are a lot of mysteries. Mysteries is the essence of knowledge about phenomena. So many things we don't understand. A vivid account is given of a magician's performance. He threw a rope in the air, and then the rope stands firm, and the man climbs it and disappears into the sky. Objects in the world can be handled and put to use, while mental creations present the same phenomenon. So there are mental, imaginary projections that serve their purpose within their own realm. A magician's creations are only transitory. A yog's creations may be permanent. Both are external to the creator, whereas the divine creation cannot be apart from the omnipresent Lord, meaning to say pure knowledge intelligence. So there are some magicians' tricks that somehow it's said to be, it is a trick. It appears to be there transitorily, but there are some yogic powers that can create things as permanent, as apparently permanent as this apparent reality projected by Maya, Ishvara. So the yog's creation and the magician's tricks both are something other than themselves. They are external to the creator, but the divine creation is not apart from the creator itself. We have seen this notion, this fact, this concept that points to a fact, that there is no separation between creator and creation, because creation is what? Creation is just a superimposition or apparent projection within the screen of the creator consciousness existence. So if there is a projection on something that is real, and the projection is just kind of a holograph projection, we cannot say that the projection is free and independent from the screen on which it is projected. In reality, there is only the screen. So that is that's the fact, and that's the condition of this creation, which appears within our consciousness, and we are conscious that it happens within our mind as an image. And then he brings about, the author brings about a very nice tale here especially for those of us attracted to these Siddhic powers. Vishvamitra, a great rishi, is reputed to have created a duplicate universe, a part of which consists of constellations composing Scorpio, Sagittarius, and the Southern Cross. So they have everything there, and he created it. He just, with its powerful mind, it did create, and with trees, plants, rivers, I mean, nothing was missing. It was just like a duplication of what we have here. There was even potatoes, onions, and chapatis, all among his creations. Because the Lord of consciousness is infinite, the creation can remain only within him, and the contrary is a fantasy. So the Lord is infinite. If he creates a universe, this universe would be finite. So the creation can only remain within him because he's infinite. So meaning to say that, I don't quite know how to comment on this passage here, but I will speculate. It means to say that consciousness is so all-pervasive and limitless and infinite that the creation can only be a mere superimposition on a small little aspect of this infinite conscious existence, okay? Because the Lord, the Creator, Brahman, is all-pervasive. So if it's all-pervasive, it pervades everything. There is nothing escaping this conscious existence. So this creation cannot be anywhere else but within Brahman, because Brahman has covered everything. You understand? So this creation can only remain within him because of the nature of all pervasiveness of consciousness, which is equivalent to say because of its non-dual nature, one without a second, which, by the way, and most importantly, is our very nature, limitless, non-dual nature. If we claim our identity / nature as this conscious existence, it all depends on how we assert our sense of identity. All there is to self-knowledge is this one, is redefine oneself and then make a stand claiming and say, yes, that is my true nature, my true identity, if we want to keep it as the I. Which I is this one? So the I, there is only one I, but the absolute I does not have a sense of individual I, okay? The individual can only exist against otherness. Imagine that there is an I, which is an I, but never has a sense of I because there is nothing like you or he or she. So consciousness does not have a sense of I, but we make those parallels to say, so there is the I, the true I. It appears as this I individual, but from the standpoint of my true nature, there is no question of otherness, okay, because it's only one without a second. Since the universe is only a projection from and in the mirror of consciousness, so it's a projection that somehow originates from consciousness through the power of Maya. It's a projection originates from consciousness and in consciousness. Okay, it happens in consciousness, and somehow the power of Maya, which exists not apart from consciousness, makes the projections within consciousness and from consciousness. This universe is unreal, but its unreal nature can become clear only on deep investigation in the light of the teachings of the Upanishads, not otherwise. We are never going to come to this conclusion unless we follow the logic as presented by the scriptures. Truth can never change its nature, whereas untruth is always changing. See how changeful the nature of the world is. That which never stops changing, that which never remains the same from one second to the other, distinguishing between the changeless truths and the changeful untruths, and they scrutinize the world comprised of these two factors, an unchanging factor and an ever-changing factor. Okay? So we need to understand those two aspects, these two factors, these two principles, change and unchanged. So we discriminate, we understand both of these natures, okay? And it is available to us within our human experience. Changeful phenomena and changeless something. Okay, what is this something that witness the changing phenomena called the universe? What is this? So one would say, it can only be human consciousness, yeah? And there is where we find incredible confusion. People start calling human consciousness as consciousness, but that refers to the mind, which is a changing phenomenon as well. So there are two factors, changeful phenomenon and changeless, subjective consciousness. So how to connect to this subjective, changeless consciousness so that we can understand from that standpoint that everything changes except I. So it depends and realize it requires a redefinition of where this I stands. This I, does this stand in the mind, in the intellect, in the emotional center, or it stands somewhere in consciousness which cannot be objectified, but yet it's where I stand. I can objectify my mind, my intellect, my emotions, my memories, my ego. So we can objectify all these koshes, but I cannot objectify. That's why it says changeless, subjective. Otherwise, it would say changeless, objective consciousness. So if it is objective, it would never be changeless, because anything that can be objectified is in a constant flow of change. So the classic example, like the unchanging light of the mirror and the changing image in it. So there is a changing light, and this light is allowing the mirror or any surface to reflect some object. So we have this light that, in analogy, we call it unchanging light. And we have the image. So we have the light that reveals any object, such as this mouse. And this light, in analogy, is not changing, even though it changes all the time. There are some clouds, the light is dimming. So changing and unchanging. So the unchanging light of consciousness is really unchanging. And this unchanging light of consciousness is what reflects or illumines and reveals any object standing within itself. And the fact is everything is standing within the scope of consciousness of this quote unquote mirror like screen of consciousness. Feel free to interrupt, to contribute with your comments, or present any doubts or complaints. The world cannot stand investigation because of its changing, unreal nature. So if we investigate, we are going to come to the conclusion that the world is not really real. And here it's giving a hint of it. Why it's not really real? Because it's changing all the time. It's here today and it's not here in a few million years. This planet maybe, no billions. But it changes every moment, changes every day. When we investigate even what is matter, we discover that matter is matter, physical matter, seen from a certain perspective. But when you see from a different perspective, using some instruments, we see that matter is no longer matter. So how about that? Simple experiments that are going to reveal that this world is not what it seems to be. And then here, the Tattreya presents a nice analogy. Just as the all is dazzled and blinded by bright sunlight, so the world parades in glory before ignorance and disappears before light or right logic, right analysis. Well, we don't stop sometimes to think about that. So this bird, how you spell O?
You mean to pronounce it? Owl.
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 Okay.
Yeah. You know, Arlinda, I've been thinking, I'm not a physicist, but there is some theory that comes out of quantum mechanics or whatever that says that the whole world is really a wave and it only becomes particle when the observer is introduced. So nothing is really real. It's just like we were discussing, nothing becomes real until awareness shines on it. Ours assuming something to be there is really just wave function until we look and it becomes seemingly real to us.
Yeah, so I know almost nothing about quantum physics as well, but I can sense that there are different insights that we can draw from these experiments, a particle or wave, a particle wave, all these small experiments that they show in the internet. But what remains to me is like the world is not what it seems to be because it's not fixed out there. So from my understanding, what is most fundamental in all these past 50 years scientific discovery, or 100 years maybe, is that the Jiva Atma, the creature, the observer, the experiencer, is in a dynamic relationship with the phenomenon it witness. You understand? So what we see is not disconnect from what is seen. You understand? So we see things, and then somehow there are two phenomena. One is that we see it so subjectively that everybody is going to see things slightly different from one another. Another thing is that what we see, is a byproduct of what we desire to see or we fear to see. So we are all the time, according to our desires and aversions, desires and fears, we are somehow impacting this phenomenal world. And then when we bring that to the subatomic aspects of the atom, it may appear more clearly how phenomenon is going to oscillate or change, or according to the observer and the expectation of the observer and everything, which gives me a hint that this whole play is cyclical, So what I want, Ishvara is going to, provide somehow as the reforming or how you say, remodeling things for the sake of our experience, because Ishvara does not create this universe arbitrarily. It designs and sustains the universe according to our desires and fears. You understand? Our expectations. So it's a very dynamic interaction between the observer and the observed. You understand? And it keeps changing. And then
it's mind-blowing when you think about how vast this is. I mean, the hummingbird's world, the ants' world, the trees' world, our world, all infinitely interconnecting and changing in that macrocosmic mind, so to speak. Is that what you would call Hiranyagarbha?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah. I'm saying on those lines. Yeah, the macrocosmic.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, the macrocosmic.
All that's going on constantly. Yeah.
So yeah, there is a lot to it, and but what is most relevant to us here is that there are two aspects. One does not change, and the other change. We need to understand that there is an aspect in our human nature, human experience, that does not change, and that is not the mind. It's not the intellect. Otherwise, it would be easier, because the mind and the intellect can be objectified, but it's something that is the subjective consciousness, which is very simple, but yet cannot be accessed objectively. And people only know how to learn from things if they can objectify things. So there is changeless, and the changeless is not an object. It is consciousness, which is not the mind, which is not expanding, it's not contracting, it's not getting more or less, or older or younger. This consciousness is akarta and nirvikaraha, never changed. And then we have our analogies to describe this aspect of our own nature that does not change. And when we investigate the nature of the world, we are going to see that everything is changing. And then there is this example, which is very nice, because we have an owl, and it's blind in bright night sunlight. I think you were referring to that. All these different jivas, creatures, they live in a different world. So what is more real in what we perceive through our ocular vision, or the ones or the world of this how you say, the owl, because it cannot see anything with sunlight, but in the night it sees everything. So the world parades in glory before ignorance. And this same world disappears when we investigate profoundly to discover that it's non-existent. It's, to a certain extent, we say it's not really real, but then it disappears. When something disappears, it's something that's non-existent. Okay, so we have two creatures, the human creature and this bird. The bird does not see the world when the sun is shining. it disappears. It's like our sleep state, but then it comes back in the night, and vice versa for us. You know? So the same way, the parallel here is that the world appears to be real due to our ignorance, avidya, this universal cosmic ignorance. But then if we bring light, and in this case, light for us, you know, that which allows us knowledge. Light is a symbol, a metaphor for knowledge. When we bring in light, in this case for us, human jivas is the sunlight. And then we have removed the darkness, which symbolizes ignorance. But for this bird, light is the darkness. You understand? And ignorance is the sunlight. So what the hell is going on? What is the truth here? Is the light a revealing power, or dark is a revealing? We don't have base for anything here. And we don't really quite understand how other creatures perceive themselves in the world. The same way the world is there, it seems to be real due to our blindness, okay? Our ignorance, this avidya. But this ignorance disappears once we open our eyes and we see, investigate, and see the unreal nature of this world. So the man sees and the owl sees only in darkness. Whose side is the better of two? Which one of these sides provide those creatures with a true sense of reality? You know, which one of these two sides the true pramana means to know? And then they answer, this cannot be determined satisfactorily. So this kind of investigation is philosophical, dry investigation, which takes us nowhere. You understand? We don't understand which one of those two means of knowledge are the real one. Nothing can be said for sure. And then the author goes on, what is food for one is poison for another. So lately I'm shocked with my chickens because they eat so much horrible things. I feel like I'm not gonna even eat your eggs anymore. You are eating rotten things, you know, and you eat shit all over the place. And how am I gonna eat you? You are putting all this garbage inside of yourself. And they are cruel as well. I thought they were cute, beautiful, God creatures, you know, living in harmony. And then sometimes a little frog enters the chicken coop. And then I see how they are cannibals. They go there, they get the the creature start pulling. When I see the head of the frog went this way, and they go there and they devour everything. And I say, oh my God, and I'm here being sentimental about not killing you. And you are killing anything. So if I was of your size, I think you would be killing me with no problem at all. You know, 3 or 4 of those chicken would get together and say, let's eat this one here, because, you know. So what is poison for one creature is food for another one, like decomposed food for worms. What is one thing to yogis? What is one thing to celestial beings is a totally different thing for others. A long distance by one vehicle is a short distance by another. Everything is relative. Everything is relative to one's instruments of perception and knowledge. Everything is relative. So if you want to travel 100 miles by bicycle, it's going to be a very long distance. But if you want to fly, it's going to be very short trip. So everything. Tomorrow, maybe we don't have any distance anymore because we may have certain technological development that just makes us think, and then boom, I'm transferred there. I would like to go there in the United States to see certain things, to address some little things there that I left there and so on. But I haven't learned how to travel like that. And to travel from here, there involves a huge, horrible jet lag and costs and so on. Long intervals of space reflecting the mirror are themselves in it. So I say, okay, the universe is a reflection in the mirror of consciousness, okay? And then you say, yeah, but time and space is something, you know, I think it's real, time and space. And say, no, time and space, they are concepts, reflect in the mirror of consciousness. And if they are reflection, they can only be a superimposition, unreal. So how can you take time and space, something to base our philosophical discussions about reality, if time and space by themselves are unreal? Because they are just projections within consciousness, the only reality. In this way, investigation becomes indeterminate by itself. When we investigate in the nature of the world, we come to no conclusion except it's not really there. It does not really exist. If you expect to find a conclusion by investigating media that could somehow explain the origin of media, okay, and the purpose of media or whatever, you know, this phenomenon, what is reality in media? So if we want to investigate media, hoping that we are going to find the God particle in media, the reality we see there real, it's impossible. All these investigations are going to be beyond the human intellect, and we cannot determine itself, reality media. The investigation and the objects we may investigate are both indeterminate. They exist, but they don't exist. They are one thing, but they are not thing. For certain creatures, it is some things. For certain other creatures, they are other things, such as food for worms that would kill a human being. The only constant factor underlying both is consciousness. So we have time and space, and then we have food, which is poison for others. Nothing else can stand beside consciousness. Consciousness is the only factor that stands this scrutinizing investigation. The scientists cannot investigate into consciousness because they believe that the mind is consciousness. At the most, they came relatively recently accepting psychology as a science, but up to certain decades or so, they wouldn't even accept that. And they'll say, no, it is science. Let's investigate the nature of mind and its psychology and so on. No? But there is only one factor that stands any and all investigations. Any investigation you do at the level of the mind is going to take you into a labyrinth of complexities that the more you try to fix the mind, more in trouble the mind gets. That's why there is no end for betterment of the mind. The people who believes to find a certain level of happiness by therapies and this and that, you're never going to get anywhere. So there is only one factor which is free and independent of everything which is not real. And any profound investigation on any phenomenon within media is going to be indeterminate. But there is only one constant factor underlying everything, and this is you, consciousness. The only factor is standing investigation is consciousness, and this investigation is only possible by a means of knowledge or pramana called Vedas or Vedanta or Upanishads. But of course, the scientific community will never accept that. Never accept that there is something. I was watching a flash of a trailer of a movie, and then there was a scientist saying, spirituality is science not yet comprehended by us. There is no such a thing as spirituality. Understand? So they believe that everything can be understood objectively as phenomenal. They don't understand that there is another factor which is non-phenomenal or nominal, which is something that observes everything else without changing. But the mind of the scientist is changing all the time with different expectations regarding of the conclusions that they want to come to prove themselves, I'm in the right track. Jesus consciousness, the only factor that stands all investigation, and it remains as the only reality, and it shines as is. But that's good. I like this one. It stands as is. It does not say stands as I. It stands as is, sat, existence itself. Jesus appears as the Tripura, the three states, the three worlds experienced by the human jivas. The wake, dream, and deep sleep. There are these three existences of universe occurring within the jivas, means of perceiving reality or media. So this consciousness, it shines as existence, and existence is existence, even in the absence of namarupas superimposed on it. This isness is Her Majesty, Tripura, the absolute consciousness. Thus, the universe is nothing but you, the self-consciousness. Everything is you. The one without a second, the one and one alone. Thus ends the chapter 11 on the ascertainment of truth. What is truth in Tripura Rahasya? Can we move to the chapter 12? The appearance of the reality of the universe depends on the strength of will of creation. So this universe appears, but it appears depending on the strength of the mind projecting it or holding it, sustaining it. Even after listening to Dattatreya patiently, Parasurama was still perplexed. And who wouldn't be perplexed? No? Oh Lord, what you have said is so far about the universe. It seems to be the truth. But let's see where the but begins. Even so, he changed, no but. Even so, how is it that it appears to be real to me and to others who are both intelligent people and shrewd? What is shrewd? Shrewd? For both. Why does this universe continue to seem to be real to me, even though I have heard you saying all these things? Please prove to me it's a reality and remove my present illusion. You see, Dattatreya just explained, present beautiful teachings, but it somehow is so far out there for mind conditioned by, the perception of phenomenon as reality, that Parasurama very sincerely and honestly say, I'm sorry, I find it incredible and beautiful, but to me, this universe still appears to be real. Why it continues to seem to be real after I have heard you and your teachings? Okay, please, Dattatreya, work a little bit harder, okay, and prove the unreality of the world. Remove my ignorance, okay? Help me out here because this is a very tough one. Thus requested Dattatreya, the great sage, the ocean of wisdom and compassion, began to explain the cause of the illusion, which makes one believe that the world is real. Listen, Parasurama, this illusion is very old, being no other than deep-rooted ignorance, which mistakes one thing for another. Ignorance. We take the objects illumined by consciousness as real, and we somehow discount in the light of consciousness. When people talk about, no, the reality is consciousness, you are just overseeing it. You see, what consciousness, man? This is ignorance. The only reality is what I am witnessing here, the world. So this is so deep-rooted. And this deep-rooted ignorance reverts things. We see the changing world as reality and the unchanging factor as irreality when we present this logic to people. You say, what's unchanging world? Talk to the scientists about it. What unchanging factor is this one? What is this self-consciousness that you are talking about? You are deluded. You need to go to a psychiatric asylum or something like that. See how the true self has been ignored and the body has become identified with the self. When we ignore this light of consciousness shine and revealing the instrument of perception and the perceived world, when this true self, this true consciousness, this pure consciousness is ignored over how long? Eternity. Beginningless ignorance. The true self has been neglected, ignored from beginningless time. And the world has been identified as real, and the body-mind has been identified as the self. I, the self. I exist. I am. Consider this full body comprised by blood and bones, beside that unblemished, pure, conscious existence. Just make a comparison, and see how could you take this body this food body, and took it, valued it, it took it to be the self, and neglected the pure intelligence of your conscious existence. It somehow, it happens. It happens, it happens, and it happens. I just hope that there are other places in the universe where this ignorance is not as much hardwired. You understand? Because here it seems to be so tough to come out of this ignorance, this avidya. See how the true self has been ignored. Even the gross body becomes mistaken for consciousness, crystal clear consciousness by force of habit. The gross body is seen as the self. Even the gross body, I said, no, the gross body, I know that's not what I am. I am the mind. Okay, that is already something. You reject the physical body. If you really reject the physical body, then don't panic when it gets very old and begins dying. But then people get old and begins dying, and then they prove that they still believe to be the body, the physical body. Even the gross physical body is taken to be the crystal clear consciousness, which is what you are. Due to what? Hardwired ignorance, force of vasanas, habits, this cosmic, eternal ignorance that imprisons all jivatmas in samsara. Force of habit, ignorance that brings again and again more births, more births, more births. Okay, and in the process, I'm reinforcing this force of habit until, for some reason, by a miracle, we get in contact with these teachings and we begin breaking this powerful ignorance, this force of habit, which tyrannically compels all human creatures to believe, I am the body, I am the mind. So also the universe has repeatedly been taken to be real, so that it now looks as if it were always actually real. What is the solution then? This is a universal, beginningless ignorance has created a momentum, and this ignorance grows like a snowball coming down the hill, the mountain, and somehow it has to crash so that we can look and see through this ignorance. How are we gonna break with this repeatedly hardwired ignorance? We see the world to be real. The remedy lies in a changing of perspective, change of outlook. What it means, change of perspective, change of outlook.
Means one has to stand as awareness, right?
Exactly. Changing outlook, perspective. You need to see the world from the standpoint of that consciousness which does not change. In the world is a changing, apparent world, which is not real. And I am the only reality, consciousness. So that's the only way we can break this beginningless ignorance. Otherwise, we're going to be nourishing it, and we are going to be caught up in samsara, coming back again and again. The only remedy lies in changing your perspective, which implies to say that the only remedy is a transfer of identity from the body-mind to consciousness. And then from consciousness, you're going to see the body-mind and the world as meteor. The only remedy lies in a shift of identity, a transfer of identity, I, the body-mind, to I, consciousness. The world becomes for one whatever one is accustomed to think of it. Oh, it is real. Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, it's misery. I can't stand this world, but I can't commit suicide. I'm afraid that it's going to be even worse if I lose my body. Whatever one thinks about it, the world is going to appear to be. It goes back to the other conversation we had, Lynn, about the observer observing phenomenon. This is borne out by the realization of yogis and of the objects of the long contemplation. Now we go into some esoteric, Siddhic, phenomenal powers of the yogis. So the world becomes for one whatever one is accustomed to think. So we say, okay, of course, the world has two aspects. It's objective reality, which is just the 5 elements. Let's put it away. But there is a vision, a perspective. The way I see the world is going to attribute positive and negative values to all configurations, all namarupas of this world. So subjectively, everybody is going to see the world differently. And when I get up in the morning, I see the world exactly the way I was seeing it before I fell asleep in the night before. But here it's pointed to another phenomenon. So we see the world, which is an objective, pratibhasika, apparent reality, vyavaharika, apparent reality. I see it as my unique pratibhasika, apparent reality. But certain individuals develop a certain power, intense, profound, focused desire, will, to even manifest things in terms of vyavaharika within vyavaharika. We are talking about the power, the seed powers of the yogis. The yogis, they realize and they project objects due to their long contemplation, willpower and contemplation. They are going to manipulate the subtle and produce physical, tangible objects. So I shall illustrate this phenomenon by an ancient and wonderful tale or incident. There is a very holy town, Sundara, in the country of Vanga. Here once lived a very wise and famous king, Susanna by name. His younger brother, Mahasena, was his loyal and dutiful subject. The king ruled his kingdom so well that all his subjects loved him. On one occasion, he performed the horse sacrifice. So we'll talk about a kingdom, a very beautiful, fair king. Everybody loved him because he had a society which was structured with some sense of justice. So, and then he said, okay, let's do a ritual which involves horse sacrifice. This sacrifice can be performed only by the most powerful kings. Only powerful kings can do that for some reason. A horse chosen and dedicated for sacrifice is allowed. I'm going to look into this situation because I totally forgot to look for for Philip today. I'm gonna see if I can remove that feature. Okay, going back to this sacrifice. A horse chosen and dedicated for sacrifice is allowed to roam wherever it pleases. The sacrificer and his lieutenant, a group of lieutenants, follows the horse at a distance. The horse is challenged to the kings in whose country it roams. So that battles are fought until the horse is successfully brought back and the sacrifice is performed. So it's a wild, beautiful, big horse, and then they let it free, and then they go there and they start, moving the horse back to the kingdom, to the country, back there, and then to the country, and then brings it back to the king. All the most valiant princes followed the horse with a great army. Their course was victorious until they reached the banks of the Iraniadi. They were so elated that they passed by the peaceful sitting royal sage Ghana without saluting him. They were so excited with their play. They got the horse, and then they were conducing the horse back to the king. They passed by a very famous and important sage Ghana, and they did not pay the respect to the sage. And then the son of Ghana's son, noticed, and they took insult and was exasperated. He caught the sacrificial horse and fought the heroes guarding it, and then all these military people guarding, and then he went there, okay, so you have insulted my father, not paying respect to him. Now I'm going to fight you and take the horse. So the army surrounded him on all sides, but he, together with the horse, entered the hill Ganda before their eyes. So the son of the sage, which was a yog on its own as well, defeated all of them, took the horse, and then marched and entered a huge mountain, a hill made out of stones. Entered the hill Ganda. There is a sage Ganda. There is a hill Ganda. They took the horse, the Ganda's son took the horse and entered the hill before their eyes. Noticing his disappearance in the hill, the invaders attacked the hill. The sage son reappeared with a huge arm, came out of this mountain with a huge arm, fought the enemy, defeated them, and destroyed their army, King Susanna's army. The son of the sage took many prisoners of war, including all the princes as well, and then re-entered the hill with all of them. A few warriors escaped the battle and flew back to Susanna and told him everything. Susanna was surprised and said to his brother, go to the place of the sage Ghana. Remember that penance doers are wonderfully powerful, and they cannot be conquered even by the gods. So a yogi with such a power is invincible, okay? So they cannot conquer, not even by the army of gods. Therefore, take care, go there, please him, so that you may be allowed to bring back your brothers, the princes, and the horse in time for our ceremony, our sacrifice, which is approaching. So go there, fix the situation, and bring back the horse and the prince, and so on. Pride before, don't take pride, don't be arrogant. If you have pride before a sage such as him, will always be humbled. If enraged, they can reduce the world to ashes. Approach him with respect so that our object, the horse, our goal may be fulfilled. You see, we read and listen to these tales about these powers. Yeah? Some people may feel like, oh, this is better than self-knowledge and moksha. Just imagine to have this power, yeah? Of creating, manifesting, living for thousands of years, and geez, I'm gonna go for that one. Yeah? No matter how many lives it may take until I developed such a power to manifest my own Vyavaharika, yeah? My own reality. Where are you going to do this? Any mountain will do. I just create a universe down inside of that mountain. So Mahazena obeyed and immediately started on his errand. He arrived at Gana's hermitage and found the sage seated peaceful like a rock, with his senses, mind and intellect under perfect control. So he goes there, he finds the sage in Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Now, what he's going to do? The sage was so immersed in the self, looked like a calm sea whose waves of thought had quieted down. Mahadana spontaneously fell prostrated before the sage and began to sing his praises. And here he remained for 3 days in reverential attitude. So he was well instructed by the king. He said, I have to be careful, so I better follow the protocol. The sage son, who had been watching the new visitors, was then pleased, and coming to him said, I am pleased with the respect you show for my father. Tell me, what can I do for you? And I will do it at once. I'm the son of this great Gana sage, the unique hermit. Prince, listen to me. This is not the time for my father to speak. He is now in Kevala, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and will come out of it only after 12 more years, of which 5 have already passed. So there are 7,000 years still missing. So don't wait for him because you're going to die. Tell me now what you desire from him and I will do it for you. Do not underestimate me and think that I'm just his son. I'm so headstrong youth, not worse of my father. There is nothing impossible for a young engaged in discipline, in penance, in practice. After hearing him, Mahazena, being wise, saluted him with clasped hands and said, O child of the sage, if you mean to fulfill my desire, I want to make a short request to you, to your wise father, when he has come out of his samadhi. So he say, this is my request to you, father. I can't wait 7,000 years, but if he comes by any chance, so this is my request. Kindly help me to that end, if you please. After he had thus requested, the sage son replied, King, your request is hard to grant. Having promised fulfillment of your desire, I cannot now go back on my word. I must now ask you to wait an hour and a half and watch my yogic power. This, my father, is now in transcendental peace, samadhi, Who can wake him up by external efforts? Wait, I shall do it forthwith by means of yoga. So there was no way he could contact his father unless he would enter the same kind of loca or frequency or dimension on which his father was enjoying that samadhi. States of mind, different vibrations of thoughts, different subtle bodies can access these locas according to the teachings of Vedanta, the teachings of the expositions of Swami Paramarthananda. Oh, we passed the time. This text is so nice. Saying so, he sat down, withdraw his sense, united the ingoing and outgoing breaths, exhaled air, and stopped motionlessly for a short time. In this way, he entered the mind of his sage father, and after agitating it a bit, he entered his own body. So he went into the mind of his father and came back to his body. Immediately, the sage came out from the state and back to his sense and found Mahazena in front of him, prostrating and praising him. The yogi, the sage, immediately accessed this whole situation by his extraordinary powers, and he knew what was going on. Perfectly peaceful and cheerful in mind, he beckoned to his son and said to him, "Boy, do not repeat it ever again. Penance is only possible, it can progress without obstruction, because the king protects yogis." And then he makes a note. On the other hand, we are what we are because in our culture, the kings, they value the yogis and protects our yogis. To interfere with the sacrifice is always reprehensible and never to be countenanced by the god. Be a good boy and return the horse and the princess immediately. Do it at once so that the sacrifice of the king may be performed at the appointed hour. So he got the consent of the sage to fix the situation. And we stop here and we carry on next Monday, same time, same Micha, outside of the hill, right here where we are. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste. Thank you. I don't know if you noticed, finally enough, they brought the cable here. Now I'm flying with 50 megabytes of internet speed. Did you notice? I speak, you hear when every expression does not have much of a second gap at the most,
Yeah.
Namaste.
Thanks so much, Arlinda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlinda.
Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.
Bye.